That's going to take a whole new learning curve. Well, hello and welcome to Breakout session number 56. Today is a continuation of Breakout session number 55. So if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that plus the materials down in the description. You should stop this, go watch 55 first if you haven't seen it, come back to this one. Before I get started, I want to say hey to all the Guitar League members around the country that might be watching today, and I hope you're having a great day. And I'd ask everybody, if you haven't subscribed already, if you'd please subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell, hit the like button, and if you've got any positive comments, I'd like to hear them, or any constructive criticism. Speaking of that, I got a lot of really nice comments on Breakout session number 55, but I did get one where the fellow was confused. His quote was, "It was as clear as mud." Okay, so let me try this again, but this is not for beginners. You need to know the scale intervals, okay, and you need to know the makeup of a chord, you know, how chords are made, to understand what I'm trying to get across today. Last one, in Breakout session number 55, we looked at a chart that had all the ones, the threes, and the fives in every chord shape all the way up the neck, where the one note is, the three note, and the five note. And the significance to that is that the one note would obviously be the root of the scale. The three would be either, it's a chord tone, and it would be either a major chord tone, or if you flattened that third, it would be a minor chord tone. So it's a very distinctive chord tone. The five is a chord tone, but it's neutral. Like if you play a five chord, a power chord is neither minor or major. It's neutral. Okay. Today we want to focus on the third and a flat seven, okay, which is known as a tritone, but that gives you the sound of a dominant seven chord. You know, that sound comes from a tritone of a third, a flat seven, and a third. Okay, so in the chart that I gave you, I linked all of the the thirds and the flat sevens all the way up the neck in every chord shape. Okay, now my chart is using flats. It should be in sharps. I couldn't figure out how to change that on the computer. Okay, so you know, like in the key of E, you'd be talking about a G sharp and a D. Okay, a G sharp being the third, a D being the flat seven. Okay, so it might say like a D and an A flat. Okay, so don't kill me on that one. But anyway, I indicated where all the thirds and flat sevens are around the neck. So you'll see it on the chart. Okay, so let's say this is we're in E. The third of E is a G sharp, A flat. And this flat seven would be a D. That's a tritone. Gives you that dominant seven sound. That sound. Okay? And they're connected. You'll see there's a pattern pattern to these things. So like D, G sharp, D, you'll see a pattern to these all the way up the neck. So why would I care about that? Well, you care about that because it's a chord tone. So if you were playing a blues, for instance, you know, a 1-4-5 blues progression, there's dominant sevens. All three of those chords could be dominant 7 chords. So those notes would fit in over those chords, okay? Now here's the big takeaway today. I want you to think about this one. If you are playing a 1-4-5 blues and it has dominant 7 chords in it, this is very interesting, okay? Let's just take this one little shape. We're in E for a minute. And we're going to go down here to the 3rd fret 2nd string, that's a D, and then a G sharp on the E string, right? That's a tritone. That's an E tritone. Okay, now, here's the important takeaway, okay? So that's over the 1 chord. If you were playing those notes, that would be just fine. Pick them out of a pentatonic scale or something. When it goes to the 4 chord, the flat 7 of the 1 chord, which in this case is a D, if you move it towards the head a half a step, it is now the major 3rd of the 4 chord, okay? A. See? So you know the sound is going to take you right down there to an A7 actually. And actually, if you move the whole tritone, this finger becomes the major 3rd of the 4 chord, and this finger becomes the flat 7 of that 4 chord. But takeaway is a flat 7 in 1 chord going down 1 is the major 3rd of the chord you're going to, the 4 chord. The flat 7 of the 1 chord, if you move it down towards the bridge at 1 fret, it becomes the major 3rd of the 5 chord, which is, in this case would be a B. Okay, so just that little bit, okay? You're playing along in E, and then it's going to go to the 4 chord. You can just go down a half a step and you're hitting a chord tone over the 4 chord. And then if you're back to the 1 chord and you're playing around with the 1 chord, okay, then you go up a half a step, you come to the 5 chord, 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Okay, so that works like in any key. So let's say we're in A. So this is the major 3rd of A. This is the flat 7 of A. So the major 3rd is on the 3rd string, 3rd string, 6th fret. The flat 7 is on the 5th string, 4th string, 5th fret. Okay, so it's a tritone again. Okay, so if you move the flat 7 down 1 fret, it's now the major 3rd of the 4 chord, which in this case, so we were in A for a minute here, right? Now we're going to D. So if you take this again, if you take the flat 7 of an A chord, the 1 chord, and you go up, it becomes the major third of the 5 chord. So this works in any key everywhere around the fretboard. And it helps with that chart that I put up there. You know, I put a chart up there that's going to give you how they string together in the key of E. Well, if you just move it in any direction up and down the fretboard, you're going to change keys. So I thought it was pretty fascinating. I've heard, you know, people say that, oh yeah, well this is, you know, you're here and now you're the third of the 4 chord, and I wasn't getting it. Okay, but it's the flat 7 of the chord moved down 1, it becomes the third of the next chord, of the 4 chord. Okay, now, so that's if you're thinking in dominant 7 thoughts. You know, you're playing a blues and it's got dominant 7 chords. If you were playing something else like country, and it might not have a bunch of dominant 7 chords in it, okay, you would just change your thinking a teeny weeny bit. I don't want to confuse you, but you know, if it were in C, so you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 note in the key of C, okay? So in this case, if you're playing in a major chord and you don't want a dominant 7, you can just think, okay, I'm in C and I'm going to go to F. So if I just play the 6th note of my scale, that becomes the third of the 4 chord. Okay, so that's the third. The 6th note in any scale becomes the third of the 4 chord in that scale. So guess what? The 7 becomes the third of the 5 chord in that scale, which would be G. It's just a matter of changing your thinking. Whether you're playing a dominant 7 chord, then you'd think about the flat 7 in the third. Okay, and if you're playing without a dominant 7 chord, you think about the 6th and the 7th. The 6th being the third of the 4 chord, the 7th being the third of the 5 chord. I know it's a little confusing, but if you understand scales, you'll get this. Okay, so the whole thing is you don't want to think about this. Okay, as you get going, your goal is to not think about any of this stuff. You just want your fingers to go there. Okay, you're not thinking about 6ths and 7ths and flat 7ths and stuff like that. But in the beginning, and while you're practicing, it helps you visualize the fretboard, and helps you think of where you're going to go, and helps. It sounds way more musical than just going up and down a pentatonic scale. So if you learn where the chord tones are, it helps you sound more musical. So I hope this is helping you. I know I'm a little all over the board again. But that's the takeaway today. Learn from my chart, figure out where the thirds and flat 7s are all over the board. That's just in the key of E, but if you just move those shapes, it's in the same place in every key. Okay, so another big takeaway. We went over the fact that these shapes are movable all the way up the neck, and one shape follows the next shape. We learned that in the last lesson, right? So the shapes follow, they never change. They go one after another. So if you started with E, you'd have an E shape, then you'd have a D shape, then you'd have a C shape, then you'd have an A shape, then you'd have a G shape, and you'd be back to E again. So we learned that last time. So anyway, that's it for today. I was styling my new telly that I built. It's got a G and a B bender on it, which is going to be a whole new learning curve on how to use this. But so far so good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'll do a review on it later. So I hope you got some things out of this. The dominant 7 note, the flat 7 of a 1 chord can become the major third of the 4 chord or the 5 chord, whether you're moving it up or down the neck a half, 1 fret, half a tone. Okay? And if you're thinking in a major tune, the 6th note in a scale is going to be the 3rd of the 4 chord, and the 7th note of the scale is going to be the 3rd of the 5 chord. And when you think about it, that's going to come in handy for you after a while if you're trying to play over the chords. So I hope you got something out of this today. I like to say that guitar playing is the exact opposite of instant gratification. I know people want to pick up a guitar and play like Eric Clapton in 5 minutes. I'm still trying to do that, and it's been years, okay? So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, 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 okay? So keep up the practice, and I hope to see you in the next video. I'll put some links down for previous videos that help you, and I put a link down, so I did a little journal on building this guitar. I'll put a link to that down there too. So everybody have a great day and be safe out there.